Hey there, how y'all doing this afternoon? Data on trail here. I thought I would share with you a brief video about how I intend to not get lost on the Appalachian Trail. I say it that way because that has been one of the questions that friends and family have asked, and even some people online. And the truth of the matter is, you would probably have to work at it to get lost on the Appalachian Trail. It's pretty well blazed, and there are a lot of people around to give you advice and to help you out. And there are a lot of technology versions of maps that you can use, like Far Out. And I'll be using some of that. But I like maps, and I have found these very helpful in the planning process, so I thought I would share them with you all. So for starters, I started off planning my hikes using the Appalachian Trail guides from Anti-Gravity Gear in part, and the AWOL guide, which I'll show you in a minute. So the Anti-Gravity Gear guides have two sides to them. They cover each one of them a section of the trail that is about 100 miles long. They have on this side a basic map of the area you'll be hiking, with important stops like shelters and road crossings and campsites. And then on the other side, as shown here, they have the topology, so you'll know where there are bigger or smaller climbs. This is really helpful in planning distance between shelters, the amount of hiking in a day, things like that. In addition to that, I have the Appalachian Trail maps from National Geographic. They can contain some other information about additional camping sites, especially if they're camping for fee slightly off trail and things like that. They're broken down in a similar set of sections that cover a little bit longer than a 100-mile area of the trail. You can see the Appalachian Trail here was the orange dashed line through this area. The other advantage of the National Geographic map is it's topographical. You can probably see those topography lines. So those lines, in addition to the changes in altitude shown on the anti-gravity gear, can give me a sense of how much elevation change I'll be going through in any one section of the hike. From those documents and the AT guide from AWOL, I gleaned a set of shortcut guides I've made up for myself. And on these I just listed the shelters, and then whether they have water at them, privy, and some kind of a bare food storage device, plus their 18 miles NOBO from Springer Mountain, and the distance between each of the shelters. It really did become clear to me on the last hike that the thing to really know on the AT is how far away the next shelter is and whether or not there is water at that shelter. Those are the critical pieces of information. So I've reduced that for this first 400 plus miles of the trail to these 4 sheets. I'll actually only carry 2 of these. Each of these that you see here is double-sided. So I'll have this information in my fanny pack each day. I've coated them in plastic so that they'll be waterproof, and I don't have to worry about them getting wet. And the same is true for this National Geographic guidebook, is also waterproofed, and so are the Appalachian Trail Guide pocket guides from Anti-Gravity Gear. And in addition to that, I have this hardbound version of the AWOL guide, which will stay home with Mrs. Data. And I'll have a digital copy of this on my phone, so if we need to communicate about where I would like a resupply box sent or where I'm going to get off trail for a day or something like that, I can reference her to a specific page. There are 2 kind of pages in the AWOL guide. This one shows similarly things about elevation guides. You can see the squiggly line running up and down on this thing, plus the names of the shelters and some other stopping points. And then there are also some more in-depth information about various town stops and places where I might get off trail in order to get resupplied or take a day off or things like that. Additionally, for Mrs. Data's benefit, I've reduced all of that kind of information on all of the shelters to a one-pager that she can just keep in the AWOL guide, so she'll know where I am and where the next couple of places I might stop are. The only other paperwork I'll be taking with me are permits for initially the Shenandoah's backpacking and access point, and then a little information about some of the first hostels that I may stop at. And then I'll take a notebook so I can make general notes, kind of like a diary about the events of the day. And I've had a running logbook for all of my hikes to the AT that just lists where I started, where I stopped, how many miles I hiked, and basic weather conditions for the day. And those are both in Rite-in-the-Rain Notebooks, which are an interesting kind of paper that's been coated with some kind of substance, so not only is it waterproof, but you can also write on it with a ballpoint pen. I'll carry all of this paperwork in that in that clear, fairly waterproof envelope, so that it should be pretty safe in the back of my pack. The anti-gravity gear guides fold up to this size. And so for the section I'm hiking, the anti-gravity gear guide for that section and the homemade guide to the shelter list for that section will be in my fanny pack. Everything else will be packed away in my pack. In addition to that, I'll have Far Out app on this phone that I'm doing the filming with now. And I'll have this Garmin InReach, which is primarily really for getting weather reports during the days or during the mornings and evenings, to keep track of what I can expect weather-wise over the next 4 or 5 hours or 6 hours on trail. And I don't really like using the technology. I can and do when I need to use Far Out and use the Garmin InReach, but my preference really is to rely on one of these anti-gravity gear guides and then the little cheat sheets that I've made up of the shelters, and really just to rely on the information that's posted on the trail signs and the blazes on the Appalachian Trail. And that way I get to enjoy hiking the trail more. And again, like I said, you could really hike probably without any of this stuff on the Appalachian Trail because it's very well marked and very well blazed. But early in my professional career, I made maps for a living for 7 or 8 years as a cartographer at a civil engineering firm. So, I'll have a couple of hours each night in my tent hiking early in the season. So looking at topography and looking at elevation changes on a hard copy of a map, as well as in Far Out, will help me to plan each evening for what the following day's hike will be. And I don't know that I'll need much more mapping stuff than this. I probably don't need this much, but perhaps now you may get a sense for why on one of my very first days hiking, my hiking partner, Late Start, thought that the trail name Data on Trail might be appropriate for me. So, from Data on Trail, I'm just wishing you all happy trails to each of you.